Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you for coming. I'll give you an overview of what we're going to do tonight. I'll be presenting material that was given to our new governor, Ms. Bamberger at Radford University. And then we'll go into the information that was provided to our House of Delegates and the Virginia Senate. And then we'll switch over to Mrs. Davis, and she'll review financial side of things. Then we'll go to Gary LaRue for an overview of the process that we've gone to date. And then I'll come back and I'll review how we would like to handle the review process with each of the departments. So uh, I'll start in here. This is part of the presentation that Governor Spanberger got at Radford University. And all of these numbers are percent increases. That's not the actual values. And so I'll start with the first line of the state gross product. You're probably all familiar with the gross domestic product on the federal level. This is the same measurements of goods and services, but on the Virginia level. And starting out, it's 2023 on the state gross product, we were doing pretty well. But as you can see, as time progressed up until this year, it's been falling off. We'll have a little bit of growth they're projecting in 27 and 28, but nothing like what we experienced back in 23. Now, state employment, that's, you can see, is dropping off to the point that this year they don't expect any growth at all on the state level. And then in 27 and 28, it's going to be very modest of only 0.3 and 0.2. So they don't expect much growth at the state level. Then the unemployment rates, unfortunately, they're falling off, and we hit a high point this year of 4%. That's not 4% unemployment, that's 4% on top of the existing unemployment rate. Staying about the same in 27 and in 28. And personal income, that's dropping off to last year and this year, and then a little bit of growth and then falling back again in 28. Population pretty much staying steady with no growth on the state level, and that's the same thing we're experiencing here in Botetourt County. So any questions on any of that? Okay. Okay, this is the review that our state legislators got. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will pick up some ones that should be near and dear to your heart. So bear with me, we'll jump through some of this first part. Okay, this is the job gains. And then instead of the bars, they've done an average for you with the actual graph. And this reinforces what we were seeing from the presentation that our governor got, that there is a downward trend here. And you can see you've got two parts here. I'll put my cursor on them. You can see we almost turned negative. And I realize what you're seeing tonight is different than what you're seeing out there in your TV ads. But I think we need to look at what the projections are for the state, because that affects what happens here in Botetourt County. Now, the next one is a little more tricky. This is just the private sector. And we're seeing the same trends, and there's two different trending organizations here, the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the automatic data processing, but they both follow each other. The magnitude of the change is a little bit different, but the trend is identical. Okay, now this one over here on the right side, we have the first green graph, and then this next graph follows right here. So this one actually is under here. So you can envision this. This is three graphs that go out, but they stacked them on top of each other. And this is, again, the unemployment rate continues to rise. Okay. Now, this one's kind of interesting. This is by industry, of which industries are growing and which ones are shrinking. Um, we kind of expected the federal one to go down due to Mr. Musk's work earlier in the Trump term, and that's actually showing up here on the graph. And the we were saying earlier that maybe this is whenever you want to be like Nancy Pelosi and you know which industries, if you want to invest in, where to do that investing. Now, this again is growth for the different areas. I won't spend much time on that, but it's showing the same trends. And this is the federal employment level. And what we had seen in the previous graph here, where we're dropping down, that's due to the change in policy in Washington, D.C. And I got one more here. Okay, this is the personal consumption, and you can see that's on a downward trend. And this one's the one that's even more troubling to me. And this is consumer sentiment. And you can see where I've got the cursor here, how that's coming back down again, um, even down to levels that we haven't seen since 2023. Any questions on any of that? Okay, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Davis. You want the chair?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? Right. I have a quick budget update presentation. Please know this was the same presentation that was given at Tuesday's board meeting, so you'll be getting all the same information if you were not able to the meeting then. So starting off, this is our planned budget calendar for the FY27 budget development, which the second item there that you are here, obviously, that was Tuesday's meeting. That item has been complete. So we began with just a general budget outlook of where we started. That presentation was given in January to the Board of Supervisors. What this presentation reflects and where we are now is the completion of the budget task force review. After this, we move into the county administration's review. We'll have information to report on that, followed by the budget subcommittee sessions, which technically this is one, but those will continue through April 10th. Following that, we have the transmittal of the recommended budget to the full board, as well as a presentation to the public on that. The public review period will be April 29th through May 13th, which will be concluded by a public hearing, and a planned budget and tax rate adoption on May 26th. Okay. So just to give you a little more context of what's happening behind the scenes through the internal stages of review. First up, we have the Budget Task Force review, which is comprised of an internal group designed to make up all categorical and constitutional areas of the county to take a dig in, look, and review everything. Those recommendations are then sent to the county administrator. He does an independent review, but those recommendations are shared and considered as that goes through that process. And then finally, the last stage of our internal review is the budget subcommittee meeting, which of course this is. So that's where we finalize the review and amendments prior to the advertised budget. Although I do want to point out that changes can still be made at that point in time prior to the adopted budget. There we go. So here's a slide just showing the guidance that was provided internally to departments in crafting their FY27 budget requests. So you can see first up, eliminate or reduce non-essential expenditures was high up on the list. Additionally, there was increased emphasis on justification of those costs and cost basis. Additionally, similar to last year, a limit of non-personnel operating increases to a maximum of 3%. Itemization of capital requests, and for the first time this year, we're including operating impacts as well to have a more full picture of those costs. And finally, to align those requests with demonstrated operational needs. Okay, on this slide, you can see the breakout of how the expenditures, where they currently stand per the Budget Task Force recommended budget by categorical area. Off to the right, just for reference, you can see the FY26 adopted budget figure of $98.8 million. Where we started the process this year was at $107.9 million, and with the recommendations of the Budget Task Force, that figure is currently at $107.1 million. So you can see the two largest categorical areas are public safety at 30.7% and education at 30.3%, which is typically what we see those two categories being the largest. Additionally, non-departmental is next on there, followed by general government and capital projects, which the next slide will have some more detail on how that is broken out. So overall, what you're seeing in the breakout is pretty consistent with the way those requests typically break out percentage-wise. Sure. So a lot of that would be debt service, some other items that don't specifically qualify for a specific department. They're more overall organization-wide. But that's probably the biggest. So moving into the capital improvement plan, currently there's $5.6 million included in the FY27 recommended budget, and that does include operating costs. Of course, the largest project category is public safety, followed by parks, recreation, and culture. Please note that there are some projects that if they have alternate financing or funding sources, they would not be included in this. Okay, moving into the other side of the coin on the revenue projections. So preliminary projections total approximately $94.1 million, which is supported primarily by local sources, which comprises 84.3% of the total. This allocation, again, is very similar to what we typically see with of course, the primary burden being placed on local revenue sources. So the current revenue estimate is reflecting a decrease of 2.7 million or 2.8% from the FY26 adopted budget. So we will continue to analyze and refine these numbers as we move through the process.
Is from manufacturing and businesses, and what parts from residential?
Well, I don't have that breakout. I do have it broken out categorically by the type of revenue on this slide, so hopefully that helps a little bit. But it's categorically, by the type of tax or fee collected. We could see if that's something that the treasurer's office could provide that breakdown. So you can see here that of course, the largest chunk of this is from property taxes. Real property taxes comprises almost half of this at 49%, followed by personal property at 15%, other local taxes of 14%, and machinery and tools at 8%, and public service corporations at 5%. So the remaining categories reflect relatively a much smaller portion of this overall total. So it is expected that these preliminary projections are going to change as we move through the process and have additional information. In the current outlook, there are indicators of an overall decrease in local revenues from fiscal year 26. The main drivers for this includes a decrease in hotel tax and earnings on investment. But conversely, there is an estimated increase in meals tax. So again, as we get more information in the current year, these will continue to be updated and refined. For state revenues, we're currently showing an increase. This is primarily due to an increase in the comprehensive services refund. There is, of course, an expenditure component of that as well that this offsets. On the federal side, those are relatively unchanged at this time. So at this stage, recommended expenditures exceed preliminary revenues by approximately 13 million. So this difference is going to be reconciled as we move through the budget process. It will occur through the stages of internal review, which we went over earlier, as well as refinements to the revenue estimates. Both of these must be reviewed and updated concurrently, of course, to reach a balanced budget. So this chart is to demonstrate where we stand as we move through the budget process. You can see down at the bottom, there's essentially the 4 stages. The green line reflects expenditures, and the blue line reflects revenues. So you can see how those are moving, and of course, this will continue to be updated as we move through the process to see where things are going. And for reference into prior years, here there's the FY25 and FY26, just to show you in the last 2 years how that movement has occurred. Of course, with there being a more dramatic change in the latter part of the budget review process. So again, just to recap, this is essentially the same slide that we started off with. We are now complete with the initial budget outlook and the budget task force review and recommendation. We're now in the county administrator's review portion while concurrently holding the budget subcommittee meetings. And again, with a planned adoption date of May 26th. Okay. Do you want me to take questions or?
Question. Is that right?
I was actually just asking the same question. Is that
Good.
Do you need to do questions, Walt?
The public safety 30.7% and education 30.3%. How does that compare to our neighboring counties?
I don't have exact percentages, but this is very common. Those do tend to take up the largest chunk. I know with Roanoke County and Roanoke City, they both have funding formula agreements with their schools. I would venture to guess that theirs are actually probably higher on the education side, but I don't have specific numbers on that.
What percentage of the revenues for the county are derived from residential property taxes?
Again, I don't have that, but that's something that we could certainly look into getting. The treasurer's office really has that information of how it's broken out. I only have it total by category, but sorry, go ahead.
Well, the overall increase is about 8% in expenditures over last year. Does the board and the administration here feel that the health of the residents of the county have improved by at least that?
I don't know that I can
This-
speak for them.
The slides that were just presented prior to you indicated just the opposite.
Sure,
So that's a concern.
absolutely.
I have a question. Has it been discussed that there needs to be major cuts in this budget going forward for this year? I mean, like, does all the apartments know in this county and where we get our monies from and all the money that has to go out? Have you all talked to them about how serious this is and how we need to make cuts?
Well, again, I don't want to speak for county administrator or the board. I'm sure those discussions are occurring.
Can you answer those questions? What?
Talking about the apartments, it's my understanding that that is a loss, it's a cost to the county. Because the services being provided. Does the county ask for the developer to contribute money to cover the schooling and fire protection and so forth? Or the developers allowed to just come in and develop, and then the county's left with those additional expenses?
Oh, I cannot speak to what those specific agreements are. That's definitely something that would fall under community development or economic development. I would imagine that generally that's not the case.
See, if we're allowing these apartments to come in and it's going to cost the county money, why do we even want them? I mean, there's a sweet spot. We might need some for labor, need some for kids growing up and need to stay here, but just a wholesale amount we're putting in and it's going to be costing the county money, that doesn't make any sense.
Again, I don't want to speak to something that I don't actually know and give incorrect information, but
Well, maybe the board can come back, because I think a lot of people here would like to see the draft of the budget before it gets finalized. And it's like she was saying, there's a lot of cuts, just like the library in Buchanan, and they're talking about 300,000 or
Yeah.
3 million? You get lost in those zeros. Do we really need that? I think the traffic going into libraries is going down. Seems to me like that's one place we could just reduce and not even spend $3 million, and let's put it towards our budget and cut some of this out.
I think, John, there's going to be in the meetings that are going to follow, there's going to be we're going through the budgets of every single department. So I think there'll be plenty of room to take a look there, as well as sort of the, guiding assumptions, like this much for salary increases and so forth, and this much for expenses. We want to look at how that relates to the actual rate of inflation. And there's a lot of room to go yet, I would say.
Appreciate it.
I have another question. In the years past, when the schools have come up with their budget and presented that to the county, it has been asked many times if the county could know what those monies were going for. How can we, as a county, be a little bit more transparent with the monies that we keep giving the schools, because year after year, it's the same wants. They get the money and nothing gets done, like the schools. I mean, they're a mess. So I would like to see a little bit more transparency with where the money from the school budget is actually going. And I don't know if that takes the county supervisors to put something in place to make that happen. But I really do think that that is something that needs to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm normally not in this direction because I'm normally facing the board, which is perfectly fine with me, but either way. One of the things that ends up happening, my name is Gary LaRue, County Administrator. And one of the things that ends up happening is, as Katie has talked about, is the budget development actually starts on July 1 of any given year, basically, because you've got to start calculating forward. And then there comes out a budget memo. There's a budget calendar that is done. And this year is a little different than what it has been in the past, which we will see how this works out. And I think it will work out well, is that, at the end of the day, the Board of Supervisors are the ones who actually calculate this and actually make it work for the county. So in this case, and in cases up until this year, the budget subcommittee has been made up of 2 board members versus the 4 board members that are here for this. And so, and as I had told some of the board members, this is not an uncommon kind of practice in some localities, that they end up having all board members or the majority of the board members or task force or work sessions or whatever that might end up being, who actually go in and help to develop the budget hand in glove with departments and staff members and things of that sort. So this is just a different way. And at the end of the day, it will end up having input from the 4 rather than the 2, even though the 2 in past years, they would end up presenting their budget that they had come up with to the full group of 5, because each one of them are actually on the full budget committee, and they appoint themselves normally in January to that point. So this is a little different, but in reality, it's not much different as far as that goes. Now, whenever start through the process, each one of the departments are given the guidelines, which Katie shared those about developing the budget and what they need to follow whenever they're making their request. So they turn those in, and then those are aggregated. Those requests are aggregated, and basically those are the numbers that you're looking at right now. That's what came out of the budget task force, because the budget task force, that's a group of department heads, some administration, not very much associated with that, but they end up looking at the budgets and they compare, and they recognize that there are certain things that are needs, there are certain things that are wants, and there are certain things that must be must-haves. And so that comes together. That's what comes out of the budget task force. Then the budget task force numbers come to me and to other members of administration. And so we look at those, and to your point, has there been significant cuts that are taking place that are, that we will be looking at? And the answer to that is yes, because just because there is a want in some department does not necessarily mean that actually makes it through the process. And then at the end of the day, The folks behind me plus one more will end up making those final decisions about the budget in the process. So that's, in general, is the way that works. Now, I am not finished with the county administrator's review of the budget at this point. And so we are probably just over halfway, maybe 60% done, somewhere in that vicinity. It just, if I had to put a number on it. But we still have some time to look at the individual lines, look at the individual departments, knowing what's happening in the future, or trying to predict what's happening in the future, and knowing what we know. We're substantially making cuts to those numbers. And then as soon as that gets done, then that will be handed over to Mr. Michael, as well as the rest of the committee and the board members. And then they can end up taking it from there and start the process of answering questions, asking departments for certain things, asking the community for certain things, whatever they choose to do so. And then they can adjust the budget from that point forward. I know it's been mentioned about the school system, and we've got the school system represented here. They do a fine job with educating kids, and we certainly do appreciate that. And so that number sometimes is held off because then there's a placeholder that's put into the budget sometimes along the way, because you don't know all of the numbers that happen at the beginning of the budget cycle. And then, as the General Assembly would have it, is that the school board sometimes needs to have those numbers identified sooner than the rest of the budget. I see Dr. Womack shaking her head, and Chairman Weddle shaking their heads about that. And so those numbers actually sometimes have to come in sooner, most of the time, if not all, have to come in sooner than whenever the board makes the final decision. And that's just the way that it operates in Virginia. And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, that's the way that it operates in Virginia. I don't know the history about that, but I know for the past 20 some years that that's what's happened in Virginia. So also, you're asking about particulars associated with the school budget. In reality, that is the responsibility of the school board to actually identify those the particular pieces that make up the school budget. And in reality, the Board of Supervisors, in most cases, they attribute those funds, they provide those funds in lump sum format. This past year, they ended up appropriating those funds in a proportionate amount just because they wanted to make sure that things were going to be able to actually appropriate the full amount. And if memory serves me well, and it may not, I think it was based off of a quarter basis, and it was 40%, 30%, 15%, and 15%. Is that correct, Katie? 40, 30, 15, 15, based off of the quarter. And you would say, well, why do you end up doing it 40% to start with? Well, you've got to end up getting teachers through the summer, getting things paid. There's a lot of bills that happen in that first quarter. And so that's making sure that they don't run out of money. And that's one of the things that really needs to take place as far as that goes. So as I started off, we are not done with the budget process as far as the county administrator reviews at this point. We will be handing those over to the budget subcommittee coming up here relatively soon, and hope that we would end up having those, plan to have those prior to the next work sessions that I think Mr. Michael has planned. And you'll be going over those scheduled sessions. Yeah. So.
About whether or not the board can put together some type of policy to where we know what they're spending the money for.
There again, it's a school board that would end up having that. So if you had questions of what is being spent in the school system, the best place to start that process would end up being with the school board and with the school system itself. Yes, sure.
Let me bring a mic so we have it for the minutes. Thank you.
Sorry.
Very good.
So our website, under finance, you'll see our budget. It's a line item budget. It has been on there for about 5 years. There's also recordings of all of our budget sessions on there. And it shows exactly what we ask for, exactly what we use it for. We have not had our CIP funded in the past 5 years. So that's why you may see facilities in bad shape. That's different from our regular budget, which is also on there. There's a chart on the beginning of our webpage that shows capital projects that we fund through other sources, COVID money and grants and things like that, that you can track on there and see the progress.
Mr. Moreau, State of the Union began with Donald Trump indicating that the state of our country is strong. What is the state of our county financially? Is it very strong? Is it weak? We have not a growing population. We have a declining student population. We have taxes that are continuing to increase. We just saw a significant tax increase recently. And we're looking at happily seeing an additional $10 million in spending being added to the county's spending budget. So does that reflect a healthy, vibrant, excellent county or not?
I would contend that actually it is a strong county. And if by example and by working with and the presentation of the audit here just recently, Corbin Stone would end up coming back and saying that, Botetourt is an envious county to be able to actually have tax base that other localities do not have, that we have opportunities that others do not have. The other thing that I would end up reminding you is that as you mentioned, $10 million difference, that is before the budget is completed too. So it's not something that will end up lasting. It'll be considerably less than that in the difference, and hopefully even balanced is what I would hope before we end up getting finished, before it goes back to the budget subcommittee.
I have a question, Gary. So after,
I'm sorry, I didn't know where to.
yeah, here I am. So after your review, and we're going to be reviewing the departmental budgets after that, is your review going to be reflected in each department, what you think should be
Yes.
cut or?
Yes.
Well,
Yes,
so we can,
we don't do that as an aggregate. We end up doing that individually. You will end up seeing at the point whenever you see the budget would be a comparative about where budget task force BTF is versus county administrator is the way that it should be, so that you can actually see what the differences were and how that operates. But it would end up being within department level budgeting.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, but we'll also have some idea of the aggregate, whether or not.
Yeah.
we're
Oh,
gonna be-
yes. Yeah. You would end up having the aggregate at the end of that as well, but it would end up having discrete departmental reviews, if you will.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
That's what the intent is. And that's the way it should be. And
Good, thank you.
yeah,
If you-
it's that's just the normal process.
Hey, Gary, we've got one more.
Yes.
So Gary, can we back up just a little bit on the apartments?
Sure.
Because, if that is a truly a lost leader and it's costing the county money, how are we addressing that with the developers?
John, to be honest, I don't think that is a loss leader. When they end up putting in the value of the investment that is on that acreage on a square foot, square acre basis, it's a substantial amount of investment. There's no way that you would end up having the same kind of investment that would be homes that were there. If that was divided up, I don't know the total number of acres. I want to say 8, 10, somewhere in that vicinity. Maybe it's a little more, a little less. But you're talking about a total investment between $30 and $40 million on that property for the Roanoke Road apartments. Basically, I'm sorry.
Which apartments is that?
That's the Roanoke Road ones, the ones just before you would get on I-81 there on the right.
Okay.
It's where the Howard Johnson's was. And if you ended up comparing that to what the Howard Johnson's was before, I know back in the day when Sheriff Sprinkle was here, he said, "I want to take you on a ride." And I said, "Okay." And he put me in his sheriff's car, and the door locked, and I couldn't get out. And there's a lot of fact to that. But we drove down there, and that was one of the places that he wanted to take me, John. He said, and we drove all around there. He said, we are spending an inordinate amount of time, energy, effort from the sheriff's department, as well as fire and EMS and other departments, health department, social services, all kinds of departments on that property. And he said, this stuff has to leave. This has to leave. There is no way around it. And whenever you compare it to what was there versus what is there now, there is a tremendous amount of difference. Now, I'm not pro negative. I work with the people, with the developers, with whatever. So you have to think about it from that perspective. However, I can count money, and I know that there has been a tremendous amount of investment put into that, and it is not a loss leader as far as that goes for this community.
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, it is very positive as far as that goes. Whenever you start thinking about it, the investment, they do that. And I mean, you're a developer, investor, all kinds of different things. I don't know what we could call you tonight, but other than citizen and friend. But in essence, I think that the number, if I recall correctly, is that the calculated number that they ended up putting on that's about $170,000 per door. They did list it per door. And I think there's 259 doors down there, if my memory serves me well. And if you do the math on that pretty quick, and then development cost and all kinds of things that's associated, but you're in the $30 million neighborhood, somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay.
And so there's no way as far as getting that kind of money on that smaller acreage, it'd be difficult to do.
I kind of think, though, there might be a difference in what John is asking and the figure that you're
And
giving.
maybe.
Yeah, because I think what John is talking about is how much does it cost the county? How much do we get in revenue for it? And how much does it cost the county? So when you look at the developer's total investment, that is not what is being paid to the county. They're paying some.
Oh, that's the reason why the 44 million is actually what 170,000 times 259. So
Right, but what are they paying in property taxes over there?
I don't know.
Are they paying it on 40 million bucks?
Well, absolutely not. What it would end up being is an investment number, and we could end up looking it up on GIS. I don't know if it accounts for all 5 buildings now or not,
Right.
but it would be the total investment divided by 100 multiplied by 70 cents, which is the real estate rate, of course. And then that's what the bill would end up being for those
Yeah,
apartments.
I think that
I
would be
would-
the important thing. What is the bill and what is the cost?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, John?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, is the county better off and how much? So
Yeah. Even if you ended up having it at 20 million, John, divided by 100, multiplied by 70, you're still talking about a large chunk of change. And, what are the expenses? I know there was a question about school buses stopping down there. Do you have any idea how many kids are in that development? Any idea? I know I've driven by there whenever the school bus was picking up, and there were like 4 or 5 kids. Wasn't a lot. And I know that in the past there had been a a calculation. It was like 0.32 kids per unit, blah, blah, blah. That was a state number for apartments. And in reality, the number is much, much less than that. I know that even at the reserve, I thought it was anecdotally interesting. It was that someone that lives there said that there's 4 or 5 kids that's actually in the reserve. However, everyone has a dog. So they traded their kids for dogs, I guess, in the process of that. But there's not a lot of kids that are actually coming into the school system out of apartments in general.
You said there's not. Okay. 'Cause the
And we've
40
got the
million-
super.
Yeah, the 40 million at 70 cents is 280,000, or just a little over maybe 22,000 a month.
Mhm.
That's on a $40 million investment.
I would think that it's
23.
probably somewhere around $300,000. So that would track.
And then how much did the county have to spend to get the fire truck with the ladder to get
That-
up to the?
Good question. That was already in the process well before those apartments or before anything, before that was even thought of. So it was still the Howard Johnsons whenever that was even thought about. So it will be someplace for it to be used, obviously. However, hopefully not. That's something that you hope that you don't have to use. However, that was not the reason to actually purchase a ladder truck. And matter of fact, there's already a ladder truck. There's already 2 ladder trucks in this county. There's one in Troutville already, and that one will be replaced with the new one. And then there's one in Buchanan as well. And it's been there for more than 10 years. It's called a Quint, Quint, I think, but it's a ladder truck. Other questions?
Thank you.
Don't ever find it.
What is it?
It's food line, Dr. Pepper.
Should have been you. HIPAA.
Stuff.
Something else I got to do. Yeah, it's not coming up.
Oh, and yours? Yeah, here you go. Is that all that you have on this one?
Thank you. Okay. Last year, we were more transparent than we had been in the past. And this year will be probably even more transparent, and we're going to hook you, the citizens, into the process this year. What we envision, and don't feel that this is solid, and that's why we're having the meeting tonight, is make sure you're comfortable with it, as well as the rest of the budget subcommittee is comfortable with it. What we envisioned is we're going to expand the number of departments that we review this year. If you recall, last year we didn't review all the departments. This year we'll be doing 40 of them. And what we're talking about is we'll devote an hour to each department. And the way we'll break down that hour is that we'll have 30 minutes review with the department heads. Then we'll have 10 minutes discussion with the budget subcommittee. And then this is where you come in. We'll have 10 minutes with public comments, and then we'll go with the suggested budget changes for that department. And then we'll have a 10-minute break while we get things ready for the next department. And Mrs. Davis is going to have information out there on the finance website for each department, where their budget stands. Is that where we'll find it? Or do you want us to put up a separate? Okay, maybe it'd be simpler if we put that into a separate one. And since we're going to be doing one an hour, I would encourage you to do your homework before you come to the meeting so we don't have to brief you on it. And whenever that 10-minute period comes, we'll roll right through that. So any thoughts? Do you like that technique versus what we did last year? I got one thumbs up, two thumbs up.
Well, you said you're gonna review 40 departments. How many departments are there total?
Pardon me?
No, we're reviewing 40 departments. How many departments are there total?
How many total
40
departments?
will pretty much cover everything. We'll be looking at even clear down to the county extension office. There's a couple that we won't be looking at, such as the judicial part and the probation officers. I don't really think there's much money to be gleaned there. So, but everything else pretty much we will be reviewing. Okay, any thoughts on this of an hour per department? Oh. Okay. Now I have me.
Do you want to put that on the finance page, Katie, or we're going to make something, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So on the finance page, if you go to our website and click on departments, and then if you go to the finance department, they've been posting all of their presentations that they present here at the board meetings. And then also there's a lot of other, previous years in there as well. So it's kind of the archive. Yep. My question to Walt and Celeste, you may be able to tell me, are we going to meet in here or will that be in the other meeting? Do we know? Yeah. Okay. Okay. In here. Okay. Roughly 40 departments.
We have a very minor number that are off, and then there are not technically speaking departments on there, like some external agencies that are included in that 40. So that's accurate. Sorry, I'm not yelling loud.
I'm just creeping in.
Would you agree with that? Some of the smaller departments, the hybrid state agencies were taken off, but there are some, I believe, on your list that were external organizations. So that's how the number came back to 40.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go through what we have as a draft here, and you'll notice that some we've devoted a little more time to. We've given them 2 slots, but we would like to review as many as we can. And also, Mrs. Davis has been kind enough that she's going to keep a running chart as to how we're progressing day by day. So you sort of think of it, at least I think of it like whenever you see the thermometers that people are progressing on their fundraising or something. So only instead of fundraising will be fund diminishing. So, okay.
Sure, we can do that. Sure.
Brush up on your Excel spreadsheet, Katie.
Um, yes, sir.
This is going to be a budgeting expenditure process. What about the revenue, projected revenue capabilities for the county? Is that going to be part of that or not?
Not at this time because we don't anticipate any new revenue streams.
So what is the projected revenue, all things being the same for FY 27?
Okay, I do have a slide we can pull up in a little bit, but right now we're about 13 million different between revenue and expenditures.
So if you don't bridge that difference between projected revenues and expenditures, you'd be looking at either increasing debt, increasing taxes, or a combination of both. Isn't that correct?
I don't foresee that. We've been able to do it in the past without incurring any additional debt.
I think, Mark, the projected revenues, which could change a little bit on the slide that we looked at, was 94.1 million.
I believe the initial ask was 107.
I think so.
But if your expenditures for next year are greater than 94.1, how will you make up the difference without increasing debt or increasing taxes or both? I don't understand how you can do that.
Good.
Yep.
So we do have fund balance, which is what has been used in the past if needed, because we do have to produce a balanced budget. We have to ensure that all of our sources equal to all of our uses. So to answer your question, if we were in that deficit position, how would we get there without raising taxes or issuing more debt? We do have reserves that could be used. I don't know that that is the plan, and I certainly don't want to speak for the board members, but just the mechanics of what you're asking.
Drawing down reserve, you weaken your credit standing. We already have debts obligations that we have to tap into the reserves for. So we won't have much reserve available to offset deficiency between spending and revenues in FY 27. Isn't that correct?
Yep.
You're okay.
I think you should attend the meeting on March 10th, when we are going to be discussing this very matter.
And if I may, we do have a fund balance policy that stipulates an appropriate level of reserves, which we are currently above and is something that we monitor. So there are guardrails in place so we don't do exactly what you just said of, getting too low in those reserves, if that answers your question.
Come up with I call it a straw man as to what departments we're going to do on what day. And that way, if there's a particular department that you're concerned with or interested in, you'll know what day and what time to appear. And if you aren't interested in any particular department, then you don't have to come. And this has changed a couple times, and I have to commend Mr. Schneider. Initially, we did not have the Board of Supervisors being reviewed, and I agree with you. We needed to do that too. So we're not excluding ourselves from this process at all. So thank you. So we're going to start off with the county's administration side and the Board of Supervisors and Human Resources. And I won't belabor all of this, but you can see as we go, and we're doing every other day. It'd be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that'll give you all a chance to do your homework for the next upcoming meeting. Okay, now we'll skim through this and you'll see we pretty well covered every department. Now, on this one, this is Friday, April the 3rd, and we put fire and EMS at the end of the day in case that runs long. It doesn't jumble up the schedule for the rest of the day. And you'll see a similar thing as we go on. Here's at the end of the day, we've done sheriff, corrections, and animal control. Again, putting it at the end of the day, so if we run long on that, it doesn't disturb the entire schedule.
Well, is this gonna be posted somewhere? Is this gonna be on the county website, what you're looking at right now, so we know the schedule?
Yes, sir.
It's
That's why we're here tonight, to make sure everybody's comfortable with this. And if everybody is comfortable with it, then we will publish it. But I didn't want to publish it and somebody say, oh, no. So, okay. But that's why we're here tonight, is to gel this. And so if you, please speak up if there's something that bothers you or you think we ought to twist it somehow. That's what we're here for tonight. And here you see Parks and Rec, and I gave them a double time period because I got an anticipation that that's probably going to take more than an hour to get through it all. And then
Those ones that are gonna take a long time, why don't you start them at 8 o'clock in the morning?
can you be here at 8? I can be here
I
at
can be
5.
here at 7. They might need.
Do you want to start at 8? Really?
Instead of finishing.
Just messing with.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when it happens now, it's Thursday.
yeah, right.
We need a vote on that.
No,
Yeah.
I wasn't being sufficient, sort of.
You got it.
That's another point. Yeah, we don't want to run up the budget with overtime because we're going to have finance department in there with us. So we've got staff in there. Gary will be there, probably David.
Now, well, for the different departments, I assume that that's more or less operating expenses. Do you address things like embedded things like pensions, employee health insurance, payroll increases, that kind of thing anywhere?
Can you give him a microphone?
Yeah. Sorry, Walt. I didn't realize you couldn't hear him. There you go.
I just assume the different departments, you're talking about operating expenses day in, day out, but things that are embedded like life insurance or health insurance, pensions, annual increases, that type of thing. Do you address that in the budget because those are expenditures?
No, we won't be looking at pensions. That's beyond our purview.
It'd be nice if you could see a pro forma that has everything, because those expenses will total up at the bottom, they'll roll up. So, if you could see, a balance sheet and
Yeah,
You should
we
answer that.
didn't anticipate getting into all the long-term obligations on the county. We're trying to get on to each department's budget for this year.
is there a financial that's done, a pro forma that you can, at some point that has all these expenses?
It's included. Mr. Michael is,
Yeah.
all of those expenses, any of the expenses are included in the budget. They're just not individualized.
You know,
Don, did
is
you?
that
do
what you're looking
Yeah,
for?
on a financial, you'll see the different departments. And as Charles was saying, you'll have your retirement, you'll have your whatever, expenses, in categories.
Yes, that's out there, and there's one chart that has all of our, how should I say it, the loans, whether it be bond or some other mechanism, such as the rehab we did at James River is out there. The new Colonial Elementary School,
Debt
the
service.
fire truck from Buchanan, all of that is out there if you want to get to it. And so that's public information, but no, we weren't going to get into that. We weren't going to get into any refinancing at this point either. There may be some of those obligations that, especially if rates go down, that maybe it would make sense to refinance, but there's also the refinance charge involved there, but we weren't going to address that at this time. All we're looking at is each department and what they would like to spend versus what we can afford for them to spend. That's what we're tasked with right now.
Okay.
Question on that. I don't quite understand when you have an influx of county employees that have been hired just a lot in the last 5 years. So that puts a big strain on our county budget. So why aren't we looking at that? Like, what is our long-term for all these people that we've hired? And the retirements, I mean, that's a huge chunk that we have to come up with. And I think that should be part of this process. Just my thoughts. That's money that we have to look at.
Okay. Just as a side, in some of our individual discussions, we even talked about wage give back. That's what we did at the railroad. That would be very unpopular. We lost some good people, but we were in very serious financial situation that can happen. Okay.
Our homes when we're in financial serious, we cut back. Just saying.
Okay. That sort of akin to what we have talked about, but we may do in the future of zero-based budgeting. And we can talk about that, but I don't think we're ready for that this year. Okay. Going on down through this, we've got school, and I've allotted 2 time slots for school. Now, Friday is going to be an interesting day. Mrs. Davis has already surveyed all of the external organizations, such as TAP, those types of organizations. That's already done. It's over 900 pages long. And we thought we would devote Friday to all these external organizations that money goes to. So we got, as an example, TAP, we got Standing Room Only, we got Attic Productions. So we'll be tackling all of those on Friday, April 10th. So that'll be our ending day for reviewing departments. Okay.
Anything like that, or all you have to be here in person?
I think you need to come. I don't envision us having a online telephone number or anything. There. You had a question?
I keep stretching. Stretching.
Okay. That's all I've got. Yes, Bill?
Did you just say 9?
Yes. Yes, that's correct. Actually, it's more than that, but that gives you an idea of the volume of material that Mrs. Davis has already uh, gleaned for us.
Documentation, how soon?
I read it all. Yeah. As I said, you need to do your homework before you show up. Pardon? When do you think we can have that up? Next week or later than that?
We have that ready to go. We could post that now. Obviously, the detail of the budget of the departments, that's still under county administration review right now, so there's nothing to post yet, but once that's complete, we can get that posted. I don't recall if there was any other documents that we talked about ahead of the meetings, items during, but if I'm forgetting anything, you know.
Okay. All right. So if you could let us know in the next couple days what your thoughts are, we'll gel this and cast it in stone. And
Favor of this.
okay.
We can do it right now.
Well, I have no problem with that. So who likes this process? All right. Who doesn't like it? All right. So that's all I've got. And hopefully you'll appreciate being part of the process this year. And please do your homework because this is going to be pretty fast paced, and that day off you're going to need to do all your reviews so that you're up to speed whenever any department that you're really concerned with comes up for review. Yes.
I'll put this schedule up on the county page. Would you be able to include links to the supporting documents for each session at that session schedule? So sort of a to be prepared, please see blah, 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 or whatever.
I mean, yeah, if there's documents available, I can make links, but I would have to get with you about that. Yeah.
Most of it will be an updated, I think mostly we'll be using like a spreadsheet that gets updated with their changes. But yeah, we can, I don't know, I guess post versions of that, if that would be the most helpful after each session.
It's just that there's so much on here and I can't speak for everybody else, but I am not a natural with budgeting and numbers. So I do want to be prepared, but I don't necessarily know right off the bat, oh, I should have looked at the most recent version of the budget and this department's thing that was posted and some other supporting document. I don't want to leave something out that I should have read because it didn't occur to me that I would need it for that session. I don't know how clear it's going to be for people like me, but this isn't natural.
Some of this is happening on the fly in the meeting, but we can think through how to post it perhaps so that for each meeting, it's already sorted and filtered by whatever department's being discussed. We can post the external organizations to that day, even though obviously you probably want to look at it sooner. As you mentioned, the 900 pages is one of the 3 documents. So yeah, I think we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I'm thinking that would probably work to have something like that. And capital, the CIP, we'll post that as well. Again, still waiting on the county administration to complete their review, so we'll have to wait for that to post those items.
And what I'll do is I'll work with Katie when it comes to pushing those out. And so we'll put them, I'll put them probably what's the easiest on your finance page or, yep, I could do that. Yep, I could do that. So I pulled it up while we were talking, but there's the page out there that if you want to go to, let's see, let me share. Let me go back over to the screen, Walt. Okay. So if you're at the top of our main page and you go to government and you go to departments, you can either open the departments page or you could go down to finance. Usually what I do, I just click on open finance page. And then Katie, you suggest the annual budget. Yep. So if you click on annual budget right here, I'll kind of highlight it there. And you click on that, it's going to open up all of the information. These right here, the ones that are in green, these are the presentations that Katie's been giving at the Board of Supervisors meeting. So she and Chad have been updating those. And then there's some, previous years, there's a video about how the budget's created. So, yep. Oh, like that. Okay. And do it like per department or something? Okay. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll set a reminder too as we get to those dates and just put links on social that go back to that page just so that people were reminded where that is. Yep. You bet.
Okay. We came up with another plan here. So, this list that I just showed you of the days and what departments will be at what time, I'll put that out on Blue Ridge People, Carol Whitpugh's site. So you'll see it tomorrow morning if Carol approves it. Just a minute, I may have stepped on. All right.
Would you please make sure?
Oh, you should be on.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Mr. Michael, would you acknowledge Mrs. Parker's comments regarding the usage of social media, particularly that is not county owned and or administrated and or controlled, please?
Okay. Here's the deal. Celeste says that she can have it out by 11 o'clock tomorrow. And So sometime after 11, I'll put it out also on Carol's site. So don't want to get ahead of the county here. So is that?
Yeah, Celeste, you want to talk to my, there's some, yes. Here you go. There's some legalities and logistics. Julie, go ahead.
So just to explain, by law, if we publish an agenda, or if this group publishes an agenda, it needs to be published to the public at large at the same time so that there's nothing secret going on and you all have access to that. We have channels that we can publish to that make sure the public at large has access. A lot of people might not follow certain social media groups, so that can follow a larger publication. But we don't want to do that first because it might be perceived as not giving the public adequate notice. If that makes sense. And it's illegal. Thank you, Celeste.
Through FOIA, it's illegal if we do that. So.
All right. So if we do it that way, we're legal, right? Okay. Thank you. Okay. That's all I've got. Do you have any other questions?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I might stop working. Affordability is a big word now. Everybody's talking about affordability. And you're going to go through this very, very difficult, long, detailed process, which is necessary. I totally recognize that. And in the end, you're going to come up with a number that may or may not be affordable because you haven't figured out what your affordable number is. And I really urge you to come up with a number and say, hey, based on the revenues that are going to be coming in and the fixed obligations that we have, you know, this is the affordable number. Now and so you can conduct this whole budgeting process to try to drive it into the affordable range. Otherwise, you're going to come up with a number that may or may not be affordable. And by then you've exhausted all this energy. You won't have and all this time, and you won't have any ability to change anything, and you'll have to adopt whatever the final number is. So I thought coming here, I'd see what is the projected affordable number budget for FY 27, and I have no idea what that is.
Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Davis, may I ask you a question? Would you be willing to pull up the slide that you had earlier that showed previous year's asks and the graph that demonstrated how that process went to the county administrator and then followed up by ending at the Board of Supervisor final decision? Because I think that graph might answer some of Mr. Tyson's questions.
I'll get this out of your way.
Mrs. Davis, one of the things I'd like for you to review on this graph, if you would please, that in the column that shows the county administrator's approval number, that is in fact the lowest number on the chart. And we see in budgeted year 25 and 26 that the ask was greater and we were able to come to those solutions. So I think there's a track record of successful budgeting. And I want to point out that the county administrator's number was surpassed by ultimately a Board of Supervisors vote. I did have a question about this slide, and one of the reasons I'm asking you to review it again is because, for example, how did we raise the number at the budget subcommittee level to a number higher than the county administrator himself approved? I want to think that I could probably guess as to why that happened, but I would prefer to not do that in public.
Sure, and I apologize, I didn't cover this very well when going through this. Really, the very simple answer is because that was the point at which the funding for the schools was decided. So up until that point, that was left as a placeholder figure, which is generally the prior year's amount. So most, if not all of it, is from that, and that change from the county administrators review to the budget subcommittee review for those 2 years.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have a fast question, I'm sorry. So county administrator gives an amount, are you doing it by department also?
Yes,
That's just the total of all the departments.
correct.
And then when it was added, all the difference went to the school because that came in later?
No, so what you see on this chart is actually 2 years worth of expenditure history. So what is happening, to Mr. Snyder's point, between the county administrator's review and the budget subcommittee review is primarily driven by a decision for additional contribution to the schools. That's, yes. Yeah, I can easily provide that. I can tell you that for FY 25, the revenue was a little bit higher. We had a surplus that we put aside, an unassigned fund balance, knowing that historically, Botetourt has operated the first 2 years roughly in a surplus situation, and the latter 2 years in a deficit situation, and that's to account for the timing of the real estate assessment. So for FY 26, the revenues were 2 million less than I mean, it's approximate number, but it's like 2,011,000 less than the expenditure figure. I do not know that I could produce that information. It is definitely a live document that gets updated throughout the process, not necessarily, and it's not something that's always been included in the budget presentations. In fact, the budget presentations, the monthly ones, are something I began last year. So unfortunately, I could try and look through documents to determine that. I'm not sure that I could really ascertain what it was at a given point in time. Okay. Anything else?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the subcommittee? Okay, thank you for coming.